there, and welcome back. Today's topic is probably the most difficult one, detoxification. We all hear about toxins and we want to get them out of our body, but what does that really mean? Detoxification is basically the way our body deals with chemicals that it isn't using and gets them out of the body. And so since all of the reactions that happen in our body are chemical reactions, they produce byproducts, and our GI tract and our urinary tract are responsible for getting them out. But how does that actually happen? If you think about the way a sandwich looks before you eat it and when it comes out, it's a lot different. And so think about all the work that has to go into getting that done. So what is detoxification? So the first part of detoxification, actually the first two parts, occur in the liver. Our liver is kind of the chemical processing plant, or the treatment plant, if you will, that takes all of these toxins, pollutants, chemicals, drugs, alcohol, things that are in our food, bacteria, viruses, all these crazy things that our body doesn't need and doesn't want, turns them into a chemical that can then be excreted from the body in our bowels through our gallbladder, kidneys, and urine. And so in order for this to happen, our liver has to be working well. And, we tend to abuse our liver with a Western diet, with alcohol, with certain pharmaceutical medications, and even illegal drugs, whatever the case may be, that's clogging up your liver. If it's clogged up, then it's not going to be functioning well, and all of these toxins are going to end up circulating in your bloodstream. So what is detoxification? Detoxification is when your liver takes a toxin, whether it is a pesticide or a drug, it's alcohol or even a bacteria or a virus, and breaks it down in such a way that it can be excreted either through the bowels or through the urine. And so most chemicals are not the right size or composition in order to just be peed or pooped out. So they must go through metabolism in the liver. And so phase one of metabolism basically takes that toxin and makes it water soluble so that it can then be excreted out. And the things that we need in order for that process to happen are some of the fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin C, D3, and E. Antioxidants, vitamins, glutathione you might have heard of because it increases our immune system. Detoxifying herbs such as milk thistle, turmeric are also really good at helping the liver be functioning well and to be able to perform this phase one reaction. The problem here is if you have very, very good phase one, you're taking your vitamins, you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're eating your fruits and your veggies, but your phase two metabolism isn't working well, then your toxins are going to get stuck in this interim phase, this danger phase, where they could potentially become dangerous. We build toxic metabolites when our toxins get these things attached to them. And if we cannot move this process forward, then those are going to build up, and that's dangerous. And so we have to make sure that before we really focus on phase one, that we focus on phase two and phase three. And so phase two is when the toxins get neutralized. A little cap gets put onto the end of that chemical to make it to where it's not reactive anymore. It's not going to react with our DNA, putting us at increased risk of cancerous processes. And so some of the things that allow that process to happen are amino acids, magnesium, the B and C vitamins, just as in phase one, glutathione, also just as in phase one, choline, and sulfur. Here are some natural sources of those things: eggs and fish, gelatin, bone broth, and some veggies. You can also take supplements that will help you promote good phase two metabolism. And then phase three is the bowel working well. Once these toxins get converted from the liver, then they need to be excreted through the bowel. And so if you have symptoms like diarrhea, constipation, if your bowels aren't functioning well, then they're not going to be pulling all of these modified toxins out of your body. And so when I first welcome a patient into Club Optimize, we always start out with bowel health. We'll talk specifically about bowel health in a later module, but if the bowel is not functioning well, then I really don't start addressing these phases until we get the bowel cleaned up a little bit. And so typically I will start a probiotic diet. If somebody's not really good at following a probiotic diet or logging the calories to make sure that we're getting what we need in there, then I'll start a supplement. It's important to remember with probiotics that if you're taking them out of a bottle, you really would like to have spore forms rather than live cultures. Live cultures usually need to be refrigerated. If the live bacteria die, then you're taking nothing. And so the spores actually get activated in the colon, and so that you know when they're coming out of the bottle, they're going to be good to go when they're in you. The other thing to remember is if you're getting probiotic from natural sources, like fermented foods, if they're canned, typically they've been treated and there's no longer any living bacteria in them. And so keep those two things in mind, and we'll address that again in later module dedicated to gut health. So again, we go through the steps of detoxification here. The most important things to remember is we do this backwards. Phase 3 occurs in the gut. We got to clean up the gut before we can make sure that the liver, the liver treated molecules can be excreted. Here again, we talk about gut detox, live active cultures for probiotics. Fiber is another thing. Once you have a good colony of positive bacteria in there, we need to feed them, and fiber is what you feed them. Liver detox, again, we do that with vitamins and minerals. That can either be done through your diet, or if you're not good at eating vegetables, like my husband, then supplements are very helpful in overcoming those barriers. Making sure you have adequate protein and amino acids. This gets left behind a lot of times. People cut calories and they cut protein. We'll learn later in the nutrition chapter that that's the wrong way to go. Your body needs protein, probably more than anything. I have included a list of lots of different foods here that help with natural detoxification, supplements that help with detoxification, and a link to my detox protocol in full script. You'll see Full Script is a supplement dispensary where you can purchase all of your supplements. Patients that come over from my program benefit from a discount, and if you're a Club Optimize member, you even get a higher discount on your supplements. Sorry if that sounded like an ad for Full Script. How do genetics play a role in your ability to detoxify? And so since these processes happen in the liver, they're chemical reactions, sometimes the way our genes are put together, we don't perform these chemical reactions very well. There are tests that I do in the optimization consultation that helps us see if there might be suspicion for a problem with these processes. If you have a genetic defect that's making it very difficult for your liver to do its job, it doesn't matter how healthy you eat or what kind of supplements I give you, you might not methylate very well. And so we want to consider maybe doing a test, which you'll see here on the program downloads. My favorite test to look at genetics is this 3x4 blueprint. And here's a sample report that I'll pull up here. You can take a look. So this is a copy of the genetic test that we do through a cheek swab. And I'm just I'm going to scroll down to the real meat and potatoes of it here. Let's see. So this is a summary of all the genes that are tested, and then they break down how those genes actually affect your different processes in your body. And so we can see that on this particular sample test, the person who was tested had genes that indicated they might have problems with inflammation and methylation, mood and behavior issues, hormone imbalances, blood pressure. This is probably a diabetic patient with high blood pressure, maybe high cholesterol. It looks like here they don't metabolize their vitamin B12 and folate very well. So you'll see this test yields a lot of information about maybe why your body is doing what it's doing, and when we know why it's doing what it's doing, we can figure out ways to intervene and help. Do you simply need more glutathione? Do we need to be aggressive with anti-inflammatory agents? Do we need to be more aggressive at treating your cholesterol and, pull the trigger on using a statin or some of the other drugs that can be effective in conjunction with statins in controlling your cholesterol and decreasing your cardiac risk? For members of Club Optimize, if we see signs of inflammation or family history of things like Alzheimer's or cardiac disease, then this is a test that we will typically do to help get more information as to how we can help. Another great test that we like to do is a metabolomics report. This metabolomics report is a urine test, so it's done at home, and it will tell me a lot about your vitamin levels, your antioxidant levels. There's an add-on of omegas. We can see how good your omega index is. Studies have shown that higher omega index equals lower cardiac risk. This is a good test for people who think they might have some sort of toxic exposure. Lead and mercury are real common ones. People that are seeing problems with the liver methylation, detoxification, just like the genetic test, this gives us some of the same clues as the genetic cheek swab does. You see, as I scroll down here, I can look at your vitamin levels, your levels of antioxidants, minerals, and we can make adjustments to your levels either through supplements or diet. Another test that's very helpful in looking at detoxification is the Dutch test. The Dutch test is a test that I recommend on anybody that is on hormone optimization or any females or males for that matter who have a history of breast cancer. This Dutch report tells a lot about how we metabolize our sex hormones and our cortisol, the stress hormone. And so you'll see the first part tells me your basic levels of your hormones: estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, which is a precursor to your hormones, and your metabolized cortisol. I can scroll down here and see if they're within range. And then this really is the crux of the whole detox picture here. When I look at the estrone, which is the estrogen that we have that comes from our adrenal glands or from conversion of testosterone into estrogen, we can see how it breaks down and gets excreted in our body. And so this first part here is phase 1, like we saw in the previous slide. Phase 1 detox. This green arrow tells me about the hydroxylation pathway. Are we able to attach that water enzyme in your liver in order to get this process pushed through the gut? Or is it getting backed up and going down this pathway where it's oxidizing and creating a free radical that can then bind and damage your DNA? This is the red pathway. We don't want this pathway. This one tells me, is your GI tract really doing its job in getting rid of this metabolite? This metabolite tends to accumulate if the GI tract is not working well. We want this one to be the biggest piece of the pie chart here, to about 60 to 80% of your metabolism. And so based on what I see here, I can tell where you're getting hung up. Is it a sluggish GI tract and we need to really push probiotics, fiber, and a healthy diet? Is it going down this pathway to where we have to worry about cancer and perhaps we're accomplishing phase 1 really well but not phase 2, and so these toxic metabolites are building up? Once we get to this good hydroxylation pathway, then we have to see, well, are we methylating well? Are we able to attach that detoxifying product onto the end of the chemical before it gets excreted through the bowel? Or is it getting backed up and becoming a problem? And so looking here, we want to see, is the this metabolite being converted? In this particular picture, it's not being converted very well. So this person probably needs some methylation support. Maybe they need to be on some glutathione or some SAM-E as a supplement to help methylate. Maybe they have a methylation defect. This person could have a genetic variant like we saw on the cheek swab test, and that could be the reason why they're not really methylating well. Here's a breakdown of the cortisol, which we'll discuss in a further module. So as you can see, detoxification is a very complicated topic. It involves a lot of pathways that can be affected by our toxins, by our genes, by the health of our liver, and by what we're taking into our body. Our micronutrients, if they're not sufficient, could create problems with this process. Again, to review the testing that we routinely do in Club Optimize, we do genetic testing through DNA cheek swab that gives us a lot of information about your specific genes and what you might be at higher risk for based on those genes. Our urine nutrient test, which gives us a lot of information about your vitamins, your minerals, your micronutrients, where you might be deficient, and how we might be able to supplement or even create a custom supplement formula for you based on these results. Our urine hormone metabolism test, especially for our hormone optimizing patients. Are you excreting your estrogen, your testosterone? How are these things breaking down in your body? Are they building up toxic metabolites that we need to address? I've also included a link here to the environmental working group. This is a really great resource that talks a lot about detoxification and what kind of toxins you're seeing in the environment, what you can do to limit them. It was so nice working with you today. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.